Um, Nikunjbihari, can we start? Yeah. Okay. Today is a very auspicious day because Lord Jagannath is arriving and we are going to a Snan Yatra. Next week, on Saturday, we will have Rath Yatra. So these are the very, very auspicious days for this temple and for the devotees. So let's chant very favorite bhajan of Shri Radha Govinda and Shri Prabhupada. Jai Radha Madhava Nikunjbihari Jai Radha Madhava Nikunjbihari Gopi Janvallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janvallabha Girivaradhari Jashodanandan Vrajjan Ranjan Jashodanandan Vrajjan Ranjan Jamuna Tira Vanchari Jamuna Tira Vanchari Jaya Radha Madhava Nikunjbihari Jaya Radha Madhava Nikunjbihari Janvallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janvallabha Girivaradhari Jashodanandan Vrajjan Ranjan Jashodanandan Vrajjan Ranjan Jamuna Tira Vanchari Jamuna Tira Vanchari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठकी। So welcome to Sri Radha Govinda Temple. Today we are going to read from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 10. We will be reading two verses, text number 31 and text number 32. You can repeat this when I say, Tvaka charma masarudira, Tvaka charma mamsarudira, Medo majjasti dhatavaha, Medo majjasti dhatavaha, Bhumi aptejo maya sapta, Bhumi aptejo maya sapta, Prano vyomambu vayubhihi, Prano vyomambu vayubhihi, Tvakacharma mamsarudira, Medo majjasti dhavatam, Bhumi aptejo maya sapta, Prano vyomambu vayubhihi. You want to try, Prabhu? Tvakcharma mamsrudira, Medo majjasti dhatavah, Bhumi ap tejomaya sapta, Prano vyomambu vayubhi. Prabhu. Tvakcharma mamsarudira, Medo majjasti dhatavah, Bhumi aptejo maya sapta, Prano vyomambu vayubhi. Tvakcharma mamsarudira, Medo majjasti dhatavah, Bhumi aptejo maya sapta, Prano vyomambu vayubhi. So word to word translation by Srila Prabhupada. Tvak, the thin layer on the skin, charma, skin, mamsa, flesh, rudira, blood, meda, fat, majja, marrow, asti, so bone, dhatavah, elements, bhumi, earth, up, water, teja, fire, maya, predominating, sapta, seven, prana, breathing air, vyom means sky, ambu means water, vayubhi means by the air. Translation by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. The seven elements of the body, namely the thin layer on the skin itself, the flesh, blood, fat, marrow, and bone, are all made of earth, water, and fire. Whereas the life breath is produced by the sky, water, and air. Purport by His Divine Grace. The construction of the whole material world is predominantly made by three elements, namely earth, water, and fire. But the living force is produced by sky, air, and water. So water is common element in both the gross and subtle forms of all material creation. And it should be noted herewith that due to necessity, water being most prominent in the material creation is the principal element of all five. This material body is thus an embodiment of the five elements, and the gross manifestation is perceived because of three, namely earth, water, and fire. Sensations to touch are perceived due to the thin layer on skin, and bone is as good as hard stone. The breathing air of life is produced of sky, air, and water, and therefore open air, regular baths, and ample space in which to live are favorable for healthy vitality. Fresh produce from earth like grains and vegetables, as well as fresh water and heat, is good for the upkeep of the gross body. Now we go to the text number 32. Gunatmakani indriyani. You can repeat. Gunatmakani indriyani. Bhutadi prabhava gunaha. Bhutadi prabhava gunaha. Manah sarva vikaratma. Manah sarva vikaratma. Buddhir vijnana rupini. Buddhir vijnana rupini. You want to try? Gunatmakani indriyani. Bhutadi prabhava gunaha. Manas sarvikaratma. Buddhir vijnana rupini. Gunatmakani indriyani. Bhutadi prabhava gunaha. Manas sarvikaratma. Buddhir vijnana rupini. Gunatmakani indriyani. Bhutadi prabhava gunaha. Manas sarvikaratma. Buddhir vijnana rupini. Word to word translation by Srila Prabhupada. Gunatmakani means attached to the qualities. Indriyani, the senses, bhuta adi, material ego, prabhava influenced by guna, the modes of material nature, mana, the mind, sarva, all, vikara, affection, happiness and distress, atma, form, buddhiya, intelligence, vijnana, deliberation, rupini, featuring, translation by Srila Prabhupada. The sense organs are attached to the modes of material nature. And the modes of material nature are produced of the false ego. The mind is subjected to all kinds of material experiences, happiness and distress. And the intelligence is the feature of the mind's deliberation. Purport by His Divine Grace. Illusioned by the material nature, the living entity identifies with false ego more clearly when the living entity is entrapped by the material body. He at once identifies with the bodily relationships, forgetting his own identity as spirit soul. This false ego associates with different modes of material nature, and thus the sense becomes attached to the modes of material nature. Mind is instrumental for feeling different material experiences, but intelligence is deliberative and can change everything for the better. The intelligent person, therefore, can attain salvation from the illusion of material existence by proper use of intelligence. An intelligent person can detect the awkward position of the material existence and thus begin to inquire as to what he is, why he is subjected to different kinds of miseries, and how to get rid of all miseries. And thus, by good association, an advanced intelligent person can turn towards the better life of self-realization. It is advised, therefore, that an intelligent person associate with the great sages and saints who are on the path of salvation. By such association, one can receive instructions which are able to slacken the conditioned soul's attachment for matter, and thus the intelligent man gradually gets rid of the illusion of matter and false ego and is promoted to real life of eternity, knowledge and bliss. So with this particular last line that Srila Prabhupada is glorifying intelligence here, and he says, intelligent man gradually gets rid of the illusion of matter and false ego and is promoted to the real life of eternity, knowledge and bliss. With that particular sentence, most of you may have realized that we are concluding or wrapping up everything about the gross body of Virat Purush. So, this particular chapter is focusing on different body or parts of Virat Purusha. So, that we have to always keep in mind that what we learned so far. From the first verse, we started with mouth. With it came hunger and thirst, eat and drink. Then came palate, tongue, taste, and vak, vocal speech, Agni. Then came nostrils, the respiration, smell, odor, and Vayu. Now, Vayu and Vak and all those that we are talking about is presiding deities for that particular sense. Then eyes were generated. What it means? Power of vision, object of sight were created, and sun god appeared. Then ears were created. What it means? power of hearing, an object of sound was created. The deity's name is Disha. And then skin came into existence. Now the reason I am pointing this out is because this particular word starts with twak. That's also skin, right? So I don't want you to understand that in the sequence, the tvacha or the skin is we are talking about now. No, just like mouth and nostrils and tvacha already came on text number 23. It was already generated. Now these two verses are not is elongation of the list, but it is telling you what it is made up of. This, and I am made, but what are these things are made up of? So what we are reading is the construction of that particular matter that we are discussing. Otherwise, in text number 20, the skin is already generated. And as skin was generated, the power of touching and touch, the trees were created and Aushadhi, the deity, produced. Then came hands, then power of acting, and the object of activities were created. The name of sense is Indriya, and from that Lord Indra appeared, because he is in charge of Indriya. So that is, Now, interdependence of hair and vegetation is also there, because you see on our hair, all over the body, we have the, on the hand and the rest of the body, we have the hair. So, growing something for the protection of the skin is also there. Now, legs is the power of moving, and object of movement also was produced, and Vishnu was generated. Now then genital, then power of generating, an object of reproduction, and along with this, the presiding deity Prajapati was created. Then Anas, power of evacuating, and the object of excretion was created, and the presiding deity Mitra was created. So similarly, they talk about the navel, abdomen, intestines, arteries, heart, seat of mind, everything. And then now we are talking about the 7 elements of body, sense organs attached to modes, product of false ego, mind for material experience, and intelligence as a feature of mind's deliberation. So here, beginning, they mention about those 5 basic elements, Panch Mahabhuta they call. Now, here in this particular verse, they say that the construction of whole material world is predominantly made of 3 elements, namely earth, water, and fire. Actually, we have the ether and air also, but they are very, very subtle. But the living food is produced by sky, air, and water. So water is a common element in both the gross and subtle form of the material creation. So we have to note that water is the most important element. If you read Bible, the first sentence it says that the earth was covered with water. First there was water, nothing but water. So what it means, that is a very, very important point. The 7 parts of the earth is actually covered by means of water. So water is a very important element out of all this. So this way we talked about the gross elements, and also we are getting into the subtle body of Virata Purusha. Today we will be wrapping up with the subtle body. From tomorrow they will be starting with the subtle body of the Virata Purusha. But Srila Prabhupada, at the end of the chapter, he tells us that actually being a devotee, we have nothing to do with Vishwarupa Darshan, Virat Purusha, the gigantic body of the God, and it's generating different body parts, and whether they are Swarup or Nirguna, whatever. Devotees are only attached to the two-handed form of Lord Sri Krishna. So it's good as an exercise to know everything, all these things, but actually it is very important for a devotee to actually getting attached to Lord Sri Krishna only. Now, another thing is that all these senses and everything like body, thin layer of skin and skin, flesh, blood, fat, marrow, bone, and all these senses that we went through all the way from mouth to genital, all those elements are made out of those five things. Now, we also see on verse number 12 that dravyam karma cha kalascha svabhavo jiva evacha yad anugruhana santi na santi yadupekshaya. So, it says that Krishna thought that ekoham, I am alone, I am the only one. Ekoham bahusyam, I want to be many. And that is why he created all this. So in this chapter, this verse number 12 says that all the ingredients he created. Because he was alone and he wanted to be many. He created all the activities. He created time. He created modes of material nature. He also created living entities. But why? For his own enjoyment. So here the living entities, Svabhavo Jiva, Jiva is here indicated. Now when we see that bone is made out of these and fat is made out of these and all that we analyze like a medical student, but how is the living being or living entities made up of? Can you think of what it is made up of? Five elements is always there. Here, the first sentence is the construction of a whole material world. Five elements are there. But Bhagavad Gita says, Annad Bhavati Bhutani. We are the product of food. Right now inside also on the table, they have plate of bhoga. Krishna is eating that. Every time you look at food, whether it's cooked, uncooked or any form, you should see the Chandogya Upanishad says there is pranamaya purush in annamaya sharira. That means in every grain there is a potency to grow a person like you and me. So this is the beauty. The devotee's eyes, when he looks at the Mahaprasad or a glass of milk offered to Krishna, you should see not just as a food or some grocery, but you should be seeing that this particular food has potency to create a human being. Because annad bhavati bhutani, parjanyad anna sambhava, yagnad bhavati parjanyo yagna karma samudbhaveta. So annad bhavati bhutani means anna is very, very important. Now, when we eat that Mahaprasad, what happens? It is divided into three parts. One is grass, other is subtle, third is causal. So, when it goes inside, it's divided into three parts. The unwanted gross part of the grain is thrown out of the body. That's known as a stool. So when you evacuate in the morning, go to the toilet, the stool comes out. But that was nothing but that Mahaprasad that he ate, right? But not all of it. It got digested, and the one part becomes masa, means flesh. It has potential to produce flesh. And second part, one part is a stool, second part is a muscle or flesh. The third part helps to grow the mind. The mind is created, like here it says, the Chandrama Manasojasa, the moon was also created, mind was also created, yes, but it needs some nourishment. So the third part of the gross prasadam goes to mind, and mind is developed. Now let's say always we offer a glass of milk also, or glass of juice, or simply water. What happens to that? Liquid. So one part is urine that you throw away. The second part becomes blood. The third part is nourishing the consciousness. So this is how the food and drinks they work. Besides this, Prabhupada says everything must be cooked in ghee. There are people who are trying to make different experiments because they say, well, ghee is not available in pure quality and it's troublesome to heart and this and that. So they may be coming up with something else. But here, the Chandogya Upanishad says, the Ghurtadi, when you add ghee to halwa and all that, what happens? The most part, the gross part becomes asti, bones. And then majja, here the word majja, marrow, is made out of ghee. And the best part of eating ghee is speech. If you want to sing nicely, if you want to speak sweetly, you should eat ghee. Because it is nourishing the speech. The speech also needs some oiling or whatever. And that is necessary. So this is from Chandogya Upanishad. You should be reading more and more of this because, Bhagavad Gita. Srila Prabhupada is mentioning all these things in chapter 8, verse number 3. So he says, first of all, annada bhavati bhutani parjanyad anna sambhavo, right? Yagna karma samudbhava. It's talking about the fire sacrifices. So, a Chandogya Upanishad is starting talking about 5 kinds of fire sacrifices. One is Brahma Yagna. Second is Rishi Yagna. What we are doing right now, reading that Maharshi Vedvyas wrote, is a Rishi Yagna. Then comes the planetary Yagna, and then comes Pitru Yagna, and then comes Bhut Yagna. Every living entity you feed to birds and beasts and all that. So, the Chandogya Upanishad describes the Vedic sacrificial processes. On the sacrificial altar, 5 kinds of offerings are made into 5 kinds of fire. So, in this particular verse, there is the word fire. So if you talk about fire, we think of a fire. Yes, we go in the kitchen and we turn on the gas and there is a fire. No, we are not talking about that fire. Chandogya Upanishad is going very deep, and it gives you 5 kinds of fire and 5 kinds of offering, 5 kinds of fire sacrifices. So, on the sacrificial fire, 5 kinds of offerings are made into 5 kinds of fire. The 5 kinds of fire are conceived of as the heavenly planets. Heavenly planets are also fire. For example, ask any devotee, where do you want to go? This, I want to go back to Godhead, right? That's the lok, Golok Vrindavan. Krishna is his own planet, Krishna lok, right? Call it Vaikuntha, Vrindavan, Golok, anything you call, but that's a part of the sky where you want to go. That's your goal. For that you have to sacrifice. And what is the oblation for that? The oblation here it says, faith. If you don't have faith, you cannot go back to God. First thing you have to faith, I'll make it right in this life. That kind of unflinching faith is required. That's what Prabhupada is quoting here. So, 5 kinds of offerings are made in 5 kinds of fire. The 5 kinds of fire are conceived as heavenly planets. Second is clouds, the earth, man and woman. And 5 kinds of sacrifice offerings are faith and the enjoyer on the moon. Doesn't have to be moon, it could be anywhere. Let's say I want to go to Pitrulok and meet my father. I can do that, right? At the time of death, when you think of Pitrus, you will end up to Pitrulok, right? If you think of Krishna, you will go to Krishna. So, and then rain, grain and semen. So what he says, that once you go to any planet, once you run out of your pious activities, then what happens? You are thrown from there upside down with the head down to the earth in form of a rain. So when it rains, you should not be just looking that, oh, these are the drops of water singing in the rain. No. Jivas are actually coming from heaven to this Mother Earth. When it gets mixed with this mud, and if there are seeds or vegetables, it grows as a grain. Those grain, like I just said, that when you look at Mahaprasad, you should be seeing the potency of the grain is to create a human being. How is it possible? Because here man and woman, they are also known as oblation. Because they eat. Who is eating? Man is eating, woman is eating. Mataji will eat or Prabhuji will eat. But what will happen? It will create semen. And when that semen is offered to a woman, then it has ability to create a child. So this is the whole process. In the process of sacrifice, the living entity makes specific sacrifices to attain specific heavenly planets and consequently reaches them. When the merit of sacrifice is exhausted, the living entity descends to earth in form of rain, then takes on the form of grain, and the grains are eaten by man and transformed into semen, which impregnates a woman, and thus the living entity once again attains the human form to perform sacrifice and so repeat the same cycle. Prabhupada doesn't recommend, even Bhagavad Gita is also not recommend, this particular verse is not recommending, Chandogya Upanishad is also not recommending that how to go in the cycle again. No, we don't want to come back. So for a devotee, this is just for the knowledge that how he should be looking around when he sees. And also it tells us how what the living beings are made up of. And I don't know how much time we have, but about this particular chapter, before also I mentioned, and today also I would like to mention that in our parampara, Bhakti Vinod Thakur is actually rightly explains us the meaning of this particular chapter. This chapter is all about senses. Of course, it's the senses of Virat Purush. Ultimately, we also came from Narayan, and we are also having the same mouth, and ears and tongue and nose and skin and all the parts of the body. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur again brings us to this particular subject or the conclusion that anything, it could be ingredients, activities, time, modes of material nature, mode of goodness, passion, ignorance, living entities, or anything that's for the enjoyment, it is for Krishna. Krishna created and he created for his own enjoyment. Only thing, Krishna is so merciful that he allows us to enjoy with him. This is the only party in which the enjoyer and the one who is enjoyed, they dance together. I'm reading Bible and in which it says that the rich man is throwing a party and he says, go and get everybody. And people say, we got to work. What party are you talking about, right? If you don't work, what are we going to do? Today there is a party, but tomorrow, so we have to commitment. We can't run away from our job. Nobody comes. So he said, get anybody, So they dragging people in the party, please come, please come. And still, one guy was not dressed up, this is in the Bible, properly. He was not dressed up properly. So the rich man comes around and he says, what is this? This is a party. What do you think? How can you dress up like this? Get out of here. All the scriptures, right? In this whole world, we are just keep enjoying without even thinking of Krishna. But Krishna never says that, get out of here. It doesn't matter. Whatever you want to watch, whatever you want to wear, whatever you want to eat, whatever you want to do. It's so good. So this is the only thing that Krishna has provided us, where the enjoyer himself and one who is enjoyed, living entities like us, we are all partying with Krishna. It's like a father has a Mercedes car and he's going for a ride, so child is also jumping into the car. In the front seat is relaxing, right? It's father's property. So Krishna created this material world and we are all enjoying. Every living entity, Krishna is no partial that he is my devotee or no, or he is Brahmana or a Kshatriya or Vaishya or Shudra. No, everybody has right to enjoy my world. So that's what it is saying. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, तुम्हारा इच्छाया मोर इंद्रिया चलान श्रवण दर्शन घ्राण भोजन बसन. He says, the exercising of my senses. We talk about all the senses, right? वांग में आसेस्तु, नासो में प्राणस्तु, अक्षणों में चक्षुरस्तु, करणों में श्रोतमस्तु, बाहों में बलमस्तु, उर्वा में. Every part of the body you can touch and identify. This is my this finger and that's my thumb and this is my that way you can do nyas. But he says whatever shravan, darshan, gran, bhojan, basan, exercising of my senses, hearing, seeing, smelling, tasting, touching is done according to your desire and only for your sake. Use it in service of Lord Sri Krishna. Rushikena, Rushikesha, Sevanam Bhaktir Uchyate. That is called devotional service. Otherwise not. If I eat for my pleasure, then what is that? That's a sense gratification, right? If I am glorifying right now myself that I am such a great devotee, I am such a great man, then does it really help me? No. I am pulling myself down. Nobody wants to hear my glorification, right? This is Krishna's temple. We should be talking about Krishna only. So that is why Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Tomara ichchaya mora indriya chalana. Indriya is my senses. And never ever use any of my senses for my sake. It is all used for Krishna's sake. निज सुख लागी कीचु नाही कोरियार भक्ति विनोद बले तब सुख सार. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is preaching that yes, you learn about all the senses and how they are produced and their purposes and all that kind of thing. A lot of details. But I no longer do anything, or I don't ever use any of my senses for my own pleasure. Bhaktivinoda says, your happiness is the essence of everything. He says, Krishna, it is your happiness. What am I going to do with my happiness? Who am I? Nothing. So this is a very beautiful thing that he is writing. Bandhu dara suta suta tab dasi das sei to sabande sabe amara prayas धन जन ग्रह दार तुम्हारा बोलिया रक्षा कोरियामी मात्र सेवक होई. So Srimad Bhagavatam ki, I guess it's done, right? So pretty soon the curtain will open and we will have the